Hi everybody, and you're very welcome along to episode 3, series 5 of our Keep It Simple series all about property. Now today, I just want to touch on, there are probably 7 or 8 reasons, 7 really main ways that a landlord can move a tenant out of a property. And this is important for particularly with the legislation, and there are the changes to the legislation, but these 7 basic ways still really do apply. Number 1 is the non-payment of rent or rent arrears. So basically, if a tenant doesn't pay the rent, then the landlord can issue a notice of termination after providing a warning, a rent arrears notice to the tenant, giving them 28 days to pay. Secondly, a breach of the lease terms. So if, for example, if the tenant violates the lease agreement with, say, antisocial behaviour, smoking, disturbance of the peace, causing damage, then the landlord can issue notice of termination after giving the tenant sufficient notice, I suppose, really, or sufficient time to rectify his or her behaviour. Now, and then the third one is you can end a fixed term lease, but only a landlord can terminate a fixed term lease if the lease agreement includes a break clause, if both parties agree to terminate, or if the tenant has breached the lease, obviously. The sale of the property. If a landlord decides to sell, then he or she can terminate the tenancy after serving notice of termination, accompanied with the statute by a statute declaration signed by your solicitor. And then 4, if, say, a landlord intends to live in the property or intends to move a family member in, then they can, again, you have to issue your notice of termination after serving. This also has got to be accompanied by a statutory declaration signed by your solicitor. And then 6 would be change of use. If the landlord decides to change the use of the property, say, for instance, from commercial to residential, they can initiate the notice of termination. And then 7, the last thing would be the substantial refurbishment. Now, this is where extensive work has been carried out so the tenant cannot remain in the property. So in this case, you've got to provide a copy of the planning permission. You've also got to get a certificate from a professional to show that staying in the property would pose a risk longer than 3 weeks. And you've also got to then give a breakdown, really, exactly what the work would entail, what sort of renovations would entail. So in all these cases with the notice of termination, just please bear in mind that when you are serving your notice of termination, that on the same day, your landlord, you as a landlord or your agent, has got to serve the RTB on the same day as a notice of termination is issued to the tenant. And if that is not done simultaneously, or if you like, side by side, then it'll be invalid. So just remember that. So thanks for listening.